A missing child, a bomb disguised as a Christmas gift, a civil rights-era Klan murderer brought to justice. Join David Ridgen as he and victims' family members track down leads, speak to suspects, and search for answers in the CBC's hit cold case podcast, Someone Knows Something. Subscribe to SKS wherever you get your podcasts.
This is a CBC podcast.
Danse, Anine, Boozhoo, hello and welcome. This is Unreserved on CBC Radio 1. I'm Rosanna Deerchild. From time to time here on Unreserved, we get to visit communities. In fact, it's one of our favorite things to do. It gives us a chance to meet people where they live. And the stories they share with us are gifts that stay with us many years later. Today on Unreserved, building canoes as a way to reclaim culture and language. Plus, I help search for hope on Winnipeg's Red River. And a mother takes her son home to the reserve for the first time.
Kevin Washagashu Lewis, Washagashu Ntigoan, and then Kevin Lewis is my English name, and I'm from Mstukskawaisik, which is Minnestickwin Lake in Saskatchewan.
Kevin Lewis is many things: a Cree language speaker, a builder, a father, and he's a teacher. Kevin built a traditional culture camp that our producer, Kyle Musica, went to visit and discovered for himself how profound certain lessons can be.
Kevin Lewis leads me through the forest. The sun shines through the trees. He gathers spruce root, birch bark, and spruce gum, all the materials he needs to build a birch bark canoe. He points out some sweetgrass, a sweet-smelling sacred medicine used in ceremony. He knows this area like the back of his hand.
I grew up here, raised here, and really enjoyed the life right by the water. Really lucky and blessed to be really close and to be around fresh water and fish like that. And then, of course, the pelicans that we saw today, and a lot of ducks and geese and stuff like that.
Grayson, you stole my trick. Oh. Grayson, you stole my trick.
Here is Kanyasik, one of the bays in Minnestickwin Lake where Kevin's ancestors used to camp and fish. It's where he used to swim with his cousins from dawn until dusk. And it's where he teaches an immersive Cree language culture camp. They build baskets, build canoes, and they build Neheawewin language speakers.
Hukta? Yeah. Hukta chinanto. A little overlap. Yeah. Panlay some. Yeah.
It took me 4 hours to drive from Edmonton to Kanyasik. I grew up about 470 kilometers away in Treaty 8 territory, known as Slave Lake, Alberta. There are many First Nation and Métis communities nearby, but my connections are only in our common last names. Much Métis and Cree tradition was wiped from our family in previous generations. The closest I got to picking medicines was the raspberry bush outside my cookum's house. Hunting, if chickens count, and I've certainly never built a canoe. So, a lot of this is new for me. Never had cattail before.
Yeah.
When did you see these?
When we were little kids, this is exactly where we'd come, and we'd come swim here. And then instead of going all the way back and running back home for a meal, one of the older cousins is like, well, we don't have to go back, let's just eat here. And then they started pulling cattail for us. So somebody showed that person. And then once we started eating, and we're like, oh, okay, well, we don't need to go home. Let's just go back into the water again.
What do you think it tastes like? I'm trying to put my finger on it.
I'm not sure. Kind of like, for me, it was like in between cucumber and celery. I don't know if that's like around that area, that consistency, but it's like, now you can actually flour that up, the roots, but then also like what I'm gathering right now, the top part, which is the pollen. So you can create like a flour, and somebody was saying like a pastry of some sort as well with this. So I'm gonna try it, and I think I hope this is the right thing to pick, but we'll see.
This place is isolated. It's 30 minutes away from any community. There's 0 cell service. Minnestickwin means island in Cree. The English name for Kevin's reserve is Island Lake First Nation. They endured significant intergenerational trauma from residential schools, but Kevin says their isolation helped.
The semi-isolation is kind of good for us. So in that way, we kept the language a little longer. Also the ceremonies, the kinship, the connection to land, it's still here, but technology and the connection to the world it's encroaching. But it's all right. We can't be stuck in the past as well, but we still can't forget the past. And then hopefully we can develop a better future for our kids.
Back in the early 2000s, he was worried about their future. At the time, he was vice principal at the school on the reserve. A teacher asked Kevin for some supplies for the shop program. There wasn't any money, but Kevin had an idea.
And I was thinking back, well, why don't we take them outside? Like, we live in a bush, right? So there's lots of wood all over the place. So I kept on thinking, I'm like, and I couldn't, and I knew, we didn't have any funding. So I thought, okay, what I could do is I could probably get an old guy. I can search out for an elder that's a woodsman that trapped all his life, that fished all his life, that knew the bush, right? And I got him. It was late Philip Wolverine, and he was a Dene elder from Patchnack. But I asked Philip, I said, do you think you could come to our school? And do you think you could show us how to make paddles? And he agreed.
The elder's wisdom led to a focus on traditional Cree ways: harvesting, building, berry picking, sweetgrass braiding, language learning. Things I never learned to do. Kevin now shares what Elder Philip taught him, and he keeps one of his first paddles as a reminder.
He was so generous with all of his knowledge that he had carried throughout his life. He was just a natural teacher. He took out a whole bunch of kids, and he's like, okay, this is a spruce tree. We're going to knock it down, and this is the axe, and then you guys are going to make your... So that up there that's hanging on the wall, that's from that time. So that paddle right there represents that time where we didn't have that much money, but we were rich in knowledge, and then we were rich in, I guess, natural resources like the wood.
So what's like all this hard stuff here? Can you explain it?
So the stuff that we want to separate from the spruce gum as we're making it is just like little chunks of bark, maybe needles from the tree and stuff like that. So that's some
spruce beetles.
We found a spruce beetle in there earlier, and we took that guy out because he's not going to go on the canoe.
Yeah, he's definitely not coming on the canoe. In case you didn't know, spruce beetles are the worst, and their bites really hurt. We took turns sharing our spruce beetle war stories.
I hate those things. I don't like those things either. Yeah. But the reality is, like, where we dig, there's lots of those spruce beetles too, and they land on you, and they're so creepy. But they're part of that. That's their terrain, because there's lots of spruce around here.
First came the paddle. Then it was onto a canoe. Kevin didn't know how to build a birch bark canoe. He read guidebooks he learned from canoe builders. Then, in 2005, for the first time in more than 70 years, he built the first birch bark canoe in this community. And the building goes on. Kevin has no problem finding help.
Suki! Come over here, quick!
Brooklyn Neviu watches as the kids run around on her scavenger hunt.
It's right there!
She smiles and looks relieved, seeing the excitement of the kids. Brooklyn is a recent education graduate. Before she started teaching, Brooklyn wanted to learn more about land-based education. One of her mentors told her about Kevin's camp.
He was like, be the Indian you never had. And it really stuck with me. It's like, thinking about it, growing up in Saskatoon, you've never seen like Indigenous teachers ever. And that just gave me hope that I don't want kids to grow up how I did, with having that loss of identity and loss of culture and language. I know there's going to be teachers that are going to help the kids on the reserve and stuff, but I want to be that teacher that, in the setting that I was in, the urban setting. And even like schools that don't have a big Indigenous population, I want to be there for those kids to create allies for the future and grow them up in a good way.
Brooklyn is at Kanyasik for her future students. She's also there for herself. She found the community she craved in Kevin and the others.
He's just like that mentor that you never had, and he'll always be like family to us, I feel. I got so close with the people here. This different experience just made us all so much closer. It feels good that you can feel comfortable enough to go, hey Kevin, like how do you say this, or how do you do this, like not having that fear anymore. So it's good to have that.
It's clear Brooklyn has learned a lot from Kevin. Traditional teachings in the classroom, how to engage young students in language learning. She also recognizes there's a lot more to it.
And I hope that one day his program builds up to like a master's program or a doctorate program, because I really want to keep going with my education, but the passion's in this program.
I see a lot of myself in Brooklyn. I hope for continued education too. One of her weekend classmates, Trevor Iron, teaches his own lessons here.
The scales need to come off.
May I help?
Yeah.
Kevin watches as Trevor guts and cleans a fish caught in the lake, while he fields all questions from eager learners.
Is that a mommy fish and a daddy fish and a baby?
Yeah. This is a mummy fish.
Trevor is from Canoe Lake Cree First Nation in Saskatchewan. He's been hunting and fishing all his life, just like Kevin. He was always curious about his culture, and he loves to take questions from the little ones.
You don't want to eat the heart.
No heart. No heart.
You're gonna have a dead.
Not today.
We're going to eat the head.
Eat the head?
For her to freely speak her mind and everything, like that was awesome. That she had the courage to ask all these different questions, and then explanations were given out and everything like that. So it was cool. It was neat. That's how I grew up.
He grew up in a family of teachers. His mom, his grandma, his aunties, even his wife. But he took a detour and worked as a power engineer before realizing that all the learning he'd done on the land as a kid needed to be shared.
Our summers were always out at our cabin and everything like that, harvesting the berries and going out hunting and fishing and getting ducks, like doing all activities, seasonal activities. So certain times to harvest certain animals, harvest certain foods, certain medicines, everything like that. So at the time I was thinking, oh, why do we have to do all of this stuff? Now I look back and like there's not too many people that actually know how to do many of these things, these items that we actually do. Like that's right up my alley, because growing up that's all we ever did, and it was like taking me back home.
Trevor and Kevin have a lot in common. Their connection to this place grounds them.
Protocol as well. We'll put tobacco down, and there used to be songs. We would sing to this tree before we would harvest it.
Kevin is tireless. One moment he's helping organize ceremony, the next he's evaluating his students. He spends so much time helping everyone, I begin to wonder if this canoe would ever get built.
Kevin manages to find some time between everything to collect some spruce gum. Perhaps the most important tree to a canoe is the birch for the bark, but not far behind it is the spruce. He finds the spruce gum on the trail, and then he chips it off the tree and into a coffee can.
Kind of does look like a spruce scab, and you can harvest. Like where I saw a lot of it was where maybe it had a little crack or somebody ripped off a branch or something like that, and then you actually do see. So it must be like a repair, a repair for itself kind of deal.
On his hands and knees, Kevin scoops out about 6 handfuls of dirt at the base of the tree. He pulls up a root, it's about the thickness of a pencil, and cuts it right before the base. The spruce root ties the birch bark together, and the spruce gum, when melted, pitches all the holes. Kevin tells me that traditionally, the Crees made birch bark canoes from 3 types of trees: spruce, birch, and tamarack. Birch for the bottom and sides, spruce for the gum and roots, tamarack for wooden frame, sheathing, and ribs. The design itself has never changed.
The engineering of that canoe has never ever been improved. It's been added to, it's been adjusted, it's been, adapted to the different environments and the different reasons why you would have a vessel like that. But the only thing that's been changed is kind of like the material. You have lighter material, you have all these different graphite, that they're using, all these different plastics that they're putting together. But it's been done already, like the different styles of canoes for the different terrains. It's been done in Turtle Island already. The engineering, the design, the architect, there's no improvement that hasn't been done yet.
I helped Kevin haul sawhorses under some trees.
This is where the build will start, so the birch bark will mostly be protected from the sun. He uses the canoe as a teaching tool. It weaves together many subjects you might recognize in any high school in Canada, sort of like a cultural spruce root.
We needed to figure out, okay, what the heck are our sciences, right? Where's our math? Where's our chemistry? Where's our biology? All those different things are tied into that canoe. So we need all those different things. There's history involved. There's songs that we sing on the lake. There's songs that are about beings in this lake, and then while you're canoeing, and you can sing to them a little bit, and then sing for your journey, and while you're harvesting. But there's so much cross-cultural themes that are tied into this canoe. So it's like our gift to the world, our engineering, our architecture, all tied into this one little craft.
That's so hard to build. Building a canoe is messy. Axes, chisels, drills, all sprawled out on the workbench. There's a 4-piece wooden frame sitting off to the side. Bent ribs hung up all around, tied into bunches. Kevin says he's fallen a bit behind, but he assures me he's close.
It's kind of here's the beautiful thing about bark too. This was peeled 2 summers ago, and we went across right here, paddled, and this is where these trees are from. They're from all locally harvested trees.
He holds a heat gun up to the birch bark. It crinkles as we unfold it.
Yeah, we'll go up here.
The materials are traditional. Many of the tools aren't. Kevin uses drills, screws, even a hot plate. Not tools his ancestors would have used to build a canoe, but he's okay with that.
I'm gonna probably guess we've never ever shied away from technology, and the canoe is the perfect example of that. And the very first canoe, or the very first trees I started peeling, I was using axes. I was using, I was, of course, a lot younger then, so I could paddle even out there to the islands and then peel them with a knife and use the axe and paddle back. So it was all, I've done that. And but right now, just because of deadlines and stuff like that, that's why I would lean that way.
Kevin figures if his ancestors saw him not using technology, they'd probably laugh at him. He's struggling to cut a 10-foot-long giant piece of birch bark.
This blade keeps on shooting away. See that?
He's got a few helpers scraping off some of the rougher patches.
All this little stuff right here, all these things. See if you can get that stuff off of there.
It makes it look a little nicer, Kevin says. And a bonus, the extra paper can be used as fire starter.
Yeah, that'll make a big difference on there.
He lines up the bark along the sides, and suddenly, it's starting to look a little bit like a canoe.
Nice. Woo! Shaping up. Okay, I'll need your hands here because I'll sandwich these three together.
That's the beauty of what Kevin does here at Kanyasik. Everyone helps. No one is allowed to stand and watch.
It takes me a second to dump my gear and help out. Together, we hold some of the birch while he puts in screws. Then, he teaches me how to stitch.
And you see how this outer root kind of peels off like a banana? So that's the stuff that you don't want. And this is the nice finish. When this dries, when you're tying with this, It holds the entire canoe, plus your cargo, plus, all the different woods that you have in there.
It feels like a hard rubber.
Okay, you starting to see that stitch? That's a really nice stitch. I guess you can't see that on radio, yeah. But if you were live, that's a real sexy stitch.
Kevin says stitching is the hard part, and it takes forever. So he tries to figure out a way to pass the time.
So do you guys know any dirty jokes?
He might be a bit cheeky, but Kevin's also pretty intuitive. He and his friend Delmar built a contraption that steams the ribs for the canoe. A process that allows Kevin to multitask instead of spending all day soaking them with hot water. He bends a few ribs, some cracking, but not snapping.
And then what we'll do is we'll just use our leg here, my thigh, and just work them in.
While some of the other ribs steam, Kevin patches some of the tiny gaps left by the stitching with the spruce gum. He's still a while away from being done, so we head out onto the lake. It's cold. The crisp air bites a bit. We head down to the point called Kanyasik, the camp's namesake, and where Kevin spent his childhood eating cattails and swimming till dusk. Where it all started. The canoe has taught him a lot, and I wonder if the fact that he's always learning is what makes him such a great teacher.
I think what this symbolizes, having this canoe and you're paddling it, you're going on this journey, right? And what we're doing on this journey as we're going is we're going and reminding people, you guys are pretty brilliant. Our ancestors were pretty brilliant to create something like this. To go across Canada, to go across all these different oceans and these expeditions, and they did fail. There was a lot of failure, but they learned from that, and they improved. And with these treaties with each other, they started developing different languages, and they started becoming smarter, and they started becoming more complex, right? But it's that pride that a vessel like this instills. There's a lot of sophisticated math that goes into a build like this. And also, how the heck did they figure out this route will tie this, this vessel together? How the heck did they know this wood bends in a certain way? Don't use that wood over there, but use this one, right? So there had to be some sort of connection or some sort of communication that somebody had at some point in our histories to put together something like that, right? So it's pretty special.
It's amazing to think about how brilliant our ancestors must have been. Kevin says he feels like they're always looking down on him, and I feel that too. They've taught me a lot. So has he. I learned some words, we shared ceremony. He showed me how to look for sweetgrass. He taught me to be patient with myself. That it doesn't matter that I grew up away from the culture and he grew up in it. We are all always learning.
It's almost like, even as long as we've been messing around with this whole idea of canoe building, right? This crazy journey that we've been on, like this morning at the pipe ceremony, to have an elder even explain more about the words and about the uses and then about the atayokana, the sacred stories that go behind the tree, and that relationship for thousands and thousands of years. That's an old tree, and we have so many uses for that one tree, from transporting to hunting to medicines, right? Every turn that you go, you're always learning. Like my ultimate goal, this is the ultimate goal. I would like to build a birch bark canoe and document all of it and use my language in Cree. Yeah, that's the ultimate goal for me. And then to be able to pass it on to my wife, my kids, and for them to help me out as well. And then, of course, my dad was there, and he was helping us out putting that thing together as well, putting on the panels. So that's really special. And then you have Delmar, and then yourself, and then all these different people that have their hands in this canoe. So really, it's not an individual activity. It's really a communal activity. It takes a community to put that thing together.
That crazy journey Kevin talks about, building a canoe, isn't finished yet. And at this rate, it could take a while.
And that's okay, because my journey isn't finished either.
Kinanaskomatin, Kevin.
For Unreserved, I'm Kyle Musica.
That was Kyle Musica sharing his own story of personal growth at Kanyasik Culture Camp. The canoe will be displayed at the Indigenous Knowledge and Wisdom Center in Edmonton once it's finished. That documentary was produced by Catherine Gretzinger and Duncan McHugh as part of the Emerging Indigenous Docmaker program here at the CBC. And while he set out to produce a doc on the canoe, Kyle said he ended up on a journey to search for the culture I never had growing up. This is Unreserved on CBC Radio 1, Sirius XM 169, and Native Voice 1. I'm Rosanna Deerchild. Still ahead, going home for the first time.
Me going to Garden Hill it's a weird feeling. I've never been here. I don't know what it's going to look like.
Are you nervous about going up to Garden Hill? To see your family, meet your family?
Yeah, because I don't know them and they don't know me. They don't know my likes, my dislikes, my strengths, my weaknesses, and I don't know their strengths, weaknesses, dislikes, and likes.
That's in just a few minutes. But first, a few years ago, I met a group of extraordinary people. On the banks of the Red River in Winnipeg, they gather for a heartbreaking task. Drag the Red is a group of volunteers who search the banks and the muddy waters for the missing. The strength and resolve of these volunteers, many of whom have missing loved ones, has stayed with me every time I look at that river. Can you describe to me what you're doing right now?
I'm dropping the hooks in the water, see if I can catch something.
They go out most every day. 2 or 3 people on a boat. Drag the Red written on the side. It is a gruesome task. Over and over, a rope attached to a metal bar and 4 hooks is thrown out. They hope to snag something, anything from the dirty waters of Winnipeg's Red River. What's your name?
Ashley Geddes.
And how long have you been doing this, Ashley?
Just started this year. My brother does Drag the Red. He's the coordinator of the boats.
And why did you want to get involved?
Well, my sister's missing, and the other girls too, and the other guys that are missing.
What's your sister's name?
Amber Gabosh.
Amber Rose Gabosh just turned 20 years old when she went missing in November of 2010. She was last seen in the city's core area, getting into an older red truck with bench seats. 5 years later, police have no leads, so her family searches. Her brother, Kyle Kematch, is one of the organizers of Drag the Red. He says searching gives him some hope.
The hooks are pretty strong, able to pull up different things, many different things. You name it, and I've probably pulled it out.
And how long have you been doing this now?
This is the 2nd season now, and so, yeah, almost 2 years.
And why do you think that this work is important?
To me, it sees that, like I think that the river is easily accessible to dump something, and the police clearly say that they won't search it. So, if there's a loved one in there, it makes me feel better knowing that someone's trying their best to search it.
What did the police tell you when you told them you wanted to do this?
They tried to talk us out of it. They advised us not to do it. They said it's dangerous. It's dark water. You can't see nothing. There's a possibility of the boat getting pulled under, and and then they said if you feel the need to do it, we support you, is what they said.
And what do they say to you now? Do you work with them at all?
Yeah, I guess if it comes down to it, we call them and then we wait for them to come and show up for the evidence. I'm still waiting for a response for the evidence I first handed in, and I do have some on Me right now, I'm waiting for them to come and grab.
What was it?
Well, we handed in a gun, we handed in hair, dentures. That was all stuff that we never got answers for yet. And yeah, possibility of what I thought was skin, but we're still waiting for the test results, and they haven't told us nothing. I don't think they're going to, but...
And so they wait and drag the red. Keymatch describes putting hooks down in the water and going with the current to find evidence of the missing. When they do snag something, it is dragged up by hand. Most times it's junk, sticks, weeds, garbage discarded in the water. Other times, though, they find bones. The job of identifying whether they are human or animal falls to this woman.
I'm the consulting forensic anthropologist working with Drag the Red.
And what's your name?
Dr. Emily Holland.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. I'm their kind of ongoing consultant for protocol, but also so they can just send me photos when they find bone, and I can tell them right away if it's animal or human. So it makes the whole system as efficient as possible.
And why did you want to get involved with Drag the Red?
Oh, because they asked. And because they wanted help. And if people are going to be out here searching for missing people, then I feel it's only fair to offer them kind of learning and training opportunities and to contribute, because, you know, any kind of search for the missing people, for any missing people, matters.
Looks like we got something here. Snag.
Might have to use the boat. Okay.
Whatever it is, it's heavy. So much so that it tips the boat, and we all have to move to the other side to balance it out, while Kyle, Ashley, and the others struggle to pull up the rope. Try to see what it is that is snagged. What is that, a rope?
Yes. That is a rope.
But in this dark brown water, it's impossible. The rope snaps, so we drive around to throw the hooks back in. Everyone is quiet, pulling, waiting.
What is it?
It looks like a car. A piece of a metal of a car. Whether it be the hood.
Finally, they pull it out and rest it on the shore, where it will wait for police to investigate.
Well, they said if we pulled up any reminiscences of a car, they'd dive. This is my second piece. The first piece is a car hood that's probably put over there. We let them know. They didn't come. So I don't know.
Maybe they meant the whole car.
Well, yeah, well, we ripped that off of something.
Back on the shore, the volunteers regroup, have a smoke break, and talk about what other secrets they have found here.
Yes, we did pull up bones too, but it turned out it wasn't human from what they said, but the fact of the matter is that my hooks can catch bones. I caught elk horns as long as you.
Wow.
Yes.
They've also caught bloody clothes and even a suitcase, all out of a river that police say is impossible to search. Drag the Red also extends out of the water and onto the riverbanks, where volunteers walk along the shores with rakes and hooks. They search in the bushes and under piles of driftwood, pull apart worn and weathered bunches of clothes to look for blood or skin or bone. Here, too, are Indigenous families and friends of the missing, but there are also allies. What's your name?
I'm Ashley.
Hi, Ashley. Why are you here today?
I'm here because this is a very important matter, and I think a lot of families want closure. So I think more people should be taking this seriously and not just leaving it up to the Indigenous population to take care of it. It'd be nice to see the white folks step up a little bit more.
And how long have you been coming to Drag the Red?
This is my very first time. Yeah, I've been here 5 years, so it's about time to get to know my neighbors.
What do you hope to find today?
Well, that is a very hard question. What I would really like is to find something to give a family closure. Just the closure. It's got to be so hard to know, to have somebody missing from your family and not knowing where they are.
Back on the boat, Kyle, Ashley, and the others clean up, put away the gloves, store the hooks. Puddles of water, the only evidence of the struggle. As for me, I don't know how they do it. Every day, getting on that boat, pulling up piece after piece, hoping to find something, anything to bring closure. It is both incredibly brave and absolutely devastating. Afterwards, Bernadette, the driving force here, calls us up for lunch. We talk and laugh, and then I go home, to my family. The boat and the Red River behind me, but the sound of her secrets still whispering. Last year, the group bought a much-needed motorboat, made possible by a $50,000 donation. Claudette Tayo Osborne and Amber Gibosh are still missing. And every spring, as the ice on the river breaks up, Drag the Red gets ready for another season of searching. This is Unreserved on CBC Radio 1, Sirius XM 169, and Native Voice 1. I'm Rosanna Deerchild. Finley Pearson is an energetic boy with piercing blue eyes and blonde hair. You wouldn't know it, but Finn is also a status Indian. He is the son of Megan Fiddler, who works here at the CBC. 4 years ago, when he was 12, Megan took Finn home for the first time for his Gumushum's 92nd birthday.
Me going to Garden Hill is a weird feeling. I've never been here. I don't know what it's going to look like.
Are you nervous about going up to Garden Hill? To see your family, meet your family?
Yeah, because I don't know them and they don't know me. They don't know my likes, my dislikes, my strength, my weaknesses, and I don't know their strengths, weaknesses, dislikes, and likes. I think it's going to look somewhat different, somewhat the same. I'm probably going to see maybe like some meat being like kind of hung up. They hang up the meat to do like something. I don't know what it is, but I think I'm going to see some of that, some skins maybe, because I know that they probably do a lot of hunting up there because of like they don't have a lot of those like Safeways and Sobeys and stuff.
What about houses? What do you think the houses will look like?
I think the houses are going to be 60% of them being normal, but the 40 being like kind of log-ish and stuff, so yeah.
After the hour-and-a-half-long flight from Winnipeg, our plane lands around 10 in the morning. My Uncle James picks us up from the airport, and from there we cross the lake from Stevenson Island onto the reserve. The radio is tuned to the local band station, and the DJ's freely flipping between English and Ojibwe. To me, that makes me feel at home. My son, however, who's a stickler for rules, can't believe I've told him to ride without a seatbelt. That's in case if you fall through the ice, you can jump out quicker. We're bumping along the res roads and arrive at Gumishum's house. That's my grandfather. And his house is this neat little green one that's perched right on the shore of the lake. When we walk in, Gumishum is in his normal spot. On the couch, one TV on the band station, the other TV right beside it has cartoons on for his great-grandchildren that live with him.
Say hi.
Finn says hello and shakes his hand. It's been a year or so since they saw each other last when my granddad came to Winnipeg. Finn sits down with Abel, my Gumishum, and looks at an old book of photos that captured what it was like to live in the 1920s in Garden Hill. He came to Garden Hill by canoe when he was only a few years old, and he tells us that he lived in a teepee before their log home was built. Back then, junk food did not exist. My grandfather doesn't speak English, and we don't speak Ojibwe. So my Uncle Randy acts as our translator, and Finn has a lot of questions.
What was it like growing up in the early to late 20s in Garden Hill?
It was so hard, he said. There was no help.
What would you have to eat back then?
I can't eat like you guys. Like fast food. Mostly rabbits, beaver, moose meat, fish. There was no salad back then, he said.
Gumishum tells us about working for only 35 cents an hour. It was a big deal when he got a raise to 50 cents. That was when he helped build the nursing station on Stevenson Island. He said at that time lard was only 25 cents for a kilogram and tea was only 65 cents. He says, but at that time, they thought those prices were steep. And as they're chatting, my Gumasham suddenly remembers the nickname he gave my son when he was little.
Maybe. White man. White man. I used to call you that when you were small.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, saw it. White man.
He says it with love.
So now that they've caught up, we get to the main event. They're throwing a party for him in the very small community hall. And hundreds of people are here to sing happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
There's only a handful of elders from his generation that are left. But this is what he's really looking forward to. There's square dancing and there's games for kids and for elders. And there's a lot of laughter. Finn takes off to be a kid after the candles are blown out on the cake. And for some reason I was worried that he wouldn't find friends, but he finds them quickly and spends the rest of the time being chased by a dozen girls. So we got to stay in Garden Hill for 2 days, and Finn got to really see the best of our community. And on the plane heading home, Finn takes his experience in.
But it was cool seeing that many First Nations people, because I've never really seen that many people in it. I mean, I've seen at the airport in Winnipeg that like all those people, but I've never seen that many. So yeah.
What do you think the best part about Garden Hill is?
Girlfriends.
What do you mean, girlfriends?
Like all the girls that were following me, and yeah, and my two new nicknames, Unter Goose,
which means what?
Which means white man, and famous.
Why were you famous? Why were they calling you famous?
Because everyone was following me.
And why were they following you?
Because I'm white. That's what they told me. They said they're following me because I'm white.
But in a good way, right?
Yeah. They weren't making fun of me, but yeah.
Did you feel that they let you become part of the community?
Yeah.
But he recognizes that for him to even be more connected to his community, to his family, he needs to learn their language.
If I want to just know how to talk to Shum without having someone to translate it, I think that will be really important.
Did you go back?
Yeah.
You want to go back?
Yeah, I want to go back. Except with the whole family.
For Unreserved, I'm Megan Fiddler.
Thanks to the CBC's Megan Fiddler for sharing that story. Her son, Finley Pearson, is 16 now. So far, that was Finn's first and only trip to Garden Hill First Nation. His Gumashum, Abel Fiddler, passed away in August of 2018. He was 94 years old. This episode was produced by Kyle Musica, Stephanie Cram, Zoe Tennant, and Anna Lazowski. I'm your favorite cousin, Rosanna Deerchild, coming at you from Winnipeg in Treaty 1 territory. Thank you for listening to Unreserved on CBC Radio 1. Until our next journey, I will say...
For more CBC podcasts, go to cbc.ca/podcasts.